ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment, a single moment, where everything shifts. Not because life suddenly got easier, not because you got lucky, but because you decided to stop living on autopilot and start driving the damn vehicle of your life. This is that moment. The truth is, most people don't live their lives. They tolerate them. They wake up every day reacting to the alarm clock, reacting to problems, reacting to stress, and worst of all, reacting to a story that says, this is just how things are. But what if I told you that everything, and I mean everything, can change, not in 10 years, not even in a year, but right now, the moment you change your psychology, your emotions, and your standards. Listen to me, you are not stuck. You're not broken. You're not unlucky. You're just running a pattern. And patterns can be changed. You see, life isn't about resources. It's about resourcefulness. You don't need more time, more money, more support. What you need is to tap into the part of you that says, enough. I will not live one more day beneath what I am capable of. That moment, that burning moment of emotional intensity is when your life begins to change. We don't change from information. We change from emotion, from leverage. When something becomes so painful that staying the same is more painful than the fear of change, that's when you leap. That's when your brain says, this is my new normal. And don't let anyone tell you your past defines you. Your past is not your future unless you choose to live there. Every master was once a disaster. Every champion was once insecure. Every visionary once had no idea what the hell they were doing. The difference, they didn't stop. They made a new decision, a real one. Not a should, but a must. Because when you turn your shoulds into musts, everything changes. You see, success is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. You already know what to do. Eat better, move your body, make that call, take that risk. But you're not doing it because you haven't attached the right meaning to it. You want to change your life. Attach massive pleasure to the things that will grow you and massive pain to the things that are killing your soul. And raise your standards. I don't mean goals. I mean standards, what you demand from yourself when no one's watching. If your standard is, I kind of show up, that's what you'll get. If your standard is, I do what it takes, I find a way, I live full force, then guess what? That's exactly what you'll build. And here's the last piece, identity. You will never outperform your identity. You can try to act like a leader, but if you still see yourself as small, you'll sabotage it. You can pretend to be confident, but if your identity is rooted in fear, you'll retreat the first time life punches back. So what's the answer? Change your identity, create a new blueprint. Stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, who do I need to become? Because once you truly change how you see yourself, not just with words, but deep in your nervous system, you will begin to act, move, speak, and live in a completely different way. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here to motivate you. I'm here to wake you up. This isn't theory. This is the truth. If you take this seriously, if you apply this right now, your entire life will shift. Not someday, not when it's convenient, but today, right now. And after this, you won't just think differently, you'll do everything differently. Let's go. You're not stuck. You're just operating from an old strategy. Now stop and let that sink in. Most people walk around believing they're trapped by their circumstances, trapped by their past, trapped by what they didn't get, who hurt them, what went wrong. They say things like, it's just the way it is, or I've tried everything, or that's just not who I am. But let me tell you something with absolute certainty, you are not stuck. You're simply running a pattern, a learned strategy that no longer serves you. Think about it like this. If your phone freezes, do you throw it away? No. You know, it's running something outdated. Maybe it needs a reboot. Maybe too many apps are open. You don't say, this phone is broken forever. You say, something's off. I just need to update it. The same is true with your life. If you're not getting the results you want, it's not because you're incapable. It's not because something's wrong with you. It's because you're using an outdated strategy, a way of thinking, feeling, acting, and reacting that got programmed into you years ago. We are creatures of habit, and our nervous system is designed for efficiency, not fulfillment. Your brain is not wired to make you happy. It's wired to keep you safe. So what does it do? It creates patterns. It looks for what worked in the past, even if it was painful, and says, let's just stick with that. If avoiding conflict got you love from a parent, you learn to suppress your voice. If pleasing others got you praise, you learn to abandon your needs. If failing once brought you pain, you learn to never try again. Those are strategies, not truths, not destinies, just strategies. And the problem isn't that you have them. The problem is that you don't even realize you're running them. Most people are asleep at the wheel. They think they're making decisions, but in reality, they're just repeating the same thoughts, the same excuses, the same fears, the same reactions. You're not stuck because life is unfair. You're stuck because your brain is loyal to an outdated map. One that says, play small, stay safe. Don't risk, don't speak up, don't believe too big. And here's the deal, it probably worked at one time. It kept you from getting hurt. It helped you survive. But what once protected you is now preventing you. And you cannot create a powerful future using survival strategies from a painful past. Let me ask you something. Do you ever feel like you're putting an effort, but nothing's changing? Like you're trying so hard, but spinning your wheels? That's not a lack of willpower. That's a misalignment of strategy. You're using tools that were never meant to build the life you want. You don't need to work harder. You need to work differently. You need a new map, a new pattern, a new playbook. Because if your strategy is avoid pain at all costs, then of course you'll procrastinate. If your strategy is make sure everyone approves of me, then of course you won't take bold action. If your strategy is I'm not good enough unless I achieve, then no matter what you do, you'll always feel empty. It's time to upgrade the software of your life. And I'm telling you, when you begin to understand this, something unlocks. Suddenly you realize you're not broken, you're not weak, you're not a failure. You're just following a set of instructions that no longer align with the life you're here to live. And once you change the instructions, you change the outcome. Think about driving a car with the GPS set to the wrong destination. You can accelerate. You can put all your energy into the gas pedal. But if the coordinates are wrong, it doesn't matter how hard you drive, you'll end up in the wrong place. That's exactly what happens when you use an outdated mental strategy. You hustle, you grind, you work hard. But the results leave you unfulfilled because the strategy was never designed to lead to freedom, purpose, or real joy. So here's the wake-up call. Your current results are the product of yesterday's thinking, yesterday's fears, yesterday's rules. If you want to change your life, and not just temporarily, but permanently, you have to challenge the strategy you've been loyal to. You have to identify what's running the show behind the scenes. And then you must install something new, something powerful. Something that reflects the truth of who you really are, not who you had to be to survive. You don't need a different life. You need a different operating system. And it all starts the moment you say, I am not stuck. I'm just ready for a better strategy. Emotion is the driving force behind all lasting change. You can have all the information in the world. You can have a shelf full of books, a brain full of knowledge, a to-do list filled with great intentions. But if you don't have the emotional leverage, nothing changes. Not really, not for long. Because change doesn't come from thinking alone. It comes from feeling something so deeply, so intensely that your entire nervous system says, we're done living this way. Human beings don't act based on what they know. They act based on what they feel. You already know what you need to do. You know you should take care of your health. Stop that toxic habit and the relationship that's killing you inside. Launch the business. Speak your truth. Stop playing small. You know it. The problem is there's a gap between what you know intellectually and what you're committed to emotionally. That's the gap where most people spend their entire lives knowing what to do, but not doing it and then beating themselves up for it. Why? Because they haven't built enough emotional intensity to break through the comfort of staying the same. We move when the pain of staying where we are becomes greater than the fear of where we could go. We shift when we link massive pain to not changing and massive pleasure to the new path. Until that shift happens in your emotional body, your patterns will keep you trapped, no matter how many books you read or podcasts you listen to. That's why people at breakthrough moments, sudden shifts, not because they learned something new, but because they finally felt something they could no longer ignore. It could be a moment of total frustration, a moment where you scream out loud, I can't live like this anymore. Or a moment of deep inspiration where something inside you lights up and says, that's who I really am. In either case, it's the emotion, not the logic, that drives the decision. We are emotional beings. We decide with emotion and justify with logic. If you don't take control of your emotional state, you'll live in reaction. You'll let stress, fear, guilt, and doubt run your life. But the moment you realize you can generate any emotional state at will, passion, hunger, gratitude, certainty, drive, that's the moment you reclaim your power. That's the moment you start leading your life. instead of managing your circumstances. Your emotions are the fuel behind every decision you've ever made. Think back to any major turning point in your life. It wasn't a spreadsheet that pushed you, was it? It wasn't data that woke you up at 2 a.m. with a fire in your soul. It was emotion. It was something that moved you, something that made you feel alive or angry or proud or unstoppable. Change doesn't happen when you're comfortable. It happens when you hit emotional thresholds, when you hit that point of never again, or no more excuses, or this is who I am now. That's when real transformation begins. Not when you think about it, when you feel it in your body so strongly that you can't go back to who you used to be. And guess what? You can create that emotion on demand. You don't have to wait for life to hit you with a crisis to wake up. You can choose it. You can condition it. You can train your nervous system to associate pain with old behaviors and pleasure with new ones. That's what lasting change is, not willpower, but a deep rewiring of your emotional associations. If you associate pain with eating healthy, you'll never do it. If you associate pleasure with avoiding conflict, you'll never have that tough conversation. But if you flip the wiring, if you link pain to being out of integrity and pleasure to telling the truth, showing up fully and demanding more from yourself, then your habits start to shift automatically. This is why two people can have the same knowledge and totally different lives. One uses the knowledge emotionally, the other only intellectually. One turns pain into power, the other turns pain into paralysis. One uses fear as a signal to step forward, the other uses fear as an excuse to run away. Same fear, different emotion attached to it. And that's the key. It's not about removing emotion, it's about mastering it, directing it, using it as a tool instead of letting it use you. The strongest people you know, the leaders, the artists, the world changers, they're not void of emotion, they are flooded with it. But they know how to harness it. They know how to turn pain into fuel, joy into momentum, gratitude into power. Because once you learn to manage your emotional state, you take back control of your life. You're no longer a slave to your past, your environment, or your fears. You become the creator, and your emotions become the spark that ignites your transformation every single day. Decisions shape destiny, not conditions. Most people spend their lives blaming their conditions. They point to their childhood, their environment, their economy, their boss, their spouse, the market, the weather, anything outside of themselves, and they say, that's why I'm not where I want to be. But here's the truth that will break you wide open. It's not your conditions that determine your life, it's your decisions. You can have two people born into the same circumstance, same zip code, same school, same level of trauma or support, and one becomes bitter while the other becomes driven. One uses the pain as an excuse, the other uses it as fuel. What's the difference? A single powerful choice? I decide what this means. I decide what I'm going to do about it. It's in those moments of decision, not in years of thinking, not in passive hoping, not in waiting for something to change, that your future is forged. And here's what most people forget, not deciding is also a decision. When you choose to stay silent, when you choose to delay action, when you choose to settle, when you choose to tolerate something that's breaking you, you are making a decision to give your power away. Every time you say, I can't, I don't know, or I'll do it tomorrow, you're deciding to postpone your growth and prolong your pain. You don't need perfect conditions to make powerful decisions. That's the lie. That's the trap. You don't wait for the fear to go away before you leap. You leap and grow wings on the way down. You don't wait for support before you act. You act, and the right people show up because your energy shifts. You don't wait for motivation. You move, and the fire gets ignited through motion. There are people with every advantage who waste it. There are people with every disadvantage who rise. Why? Because it's not the conditions, it's the decision to rise, to fight, to keep going, to believe when nothing is certain, to commit when fear says run. That decision has built every empire. That decision has restored every broken soul. That decision is what separates the life you dream of from the life you settle for. People say they don't have time, but the truth is they haven't decided. When you truly decide, time bends to your will. You find it, you make it, you wake up earlier, you drop distractions, you stop negotiating with your limitations. Because when you decide something is a must, everything else adjusts. Every breakthrough starts with a decision, not a wish, not a preference, not a vague, I'd like to. A real decision, one where you cut off all other options. That's what the word literally means, decide, from Latin meaning to cut off. When you decide, you eliminate the back door, you remove the exit strategy, you close the gap between where you are and where you're going. And you begin to act like the person who already has it. Think about it. The moment you made a decision to commit fully to something, a relationship, a career, your health, your personal growth, you felt power surge through you. Why? Because clarity is power. And most people walk around in a fog, maybe full of someday, full of we'll see. But when you decide, that fog lifts. You stop drifting, you start directing. Don't wait for a sign. Don't wait for a guarantee. Make the decision and let that decision be the signal. Let that be the moment your nervous system recognizes this is real now. There is a moment in every person's life where they have to decide, am I gonna live by default or am I gonna live by design? Am I gonna let my history write my future or am I gonna decide who I become starting now? Because if you don't decide, life will decide for you. And let me promise you, this life has no shortage of distractions, delays, and detours waiting for those who drift. When you take your power back and start owning your decisions, something shifts on a cellular level. You're no longer at the mercy of your external world. You become the architect of your internal one, and that internal world will shape everything else. You can decide to be bold. You can decide to believe. You can decide to forgive, to let go, to start over, to level up, to never go back to who you were pretending to be. One moment of decision can redirect an entire lifetime. The decision to get healthy, the decision to walk away, the decision to step in, the decision to go all in, the decision to love without fear, the decision to take ownership of your energy, your identity, your standard. And the beautiful thing is you can decide right now. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect timing. You just need to want it more than you want to stay the same. Because ultimately, it's never the conditions that shape you. It's the decisions you make in spite of them. If you want a new life, you must build new standards. That's the truth most people don't want to face. Everyone wants a better life, more success, more passion, more impact, more freedom, but they try to get it while holding on to the same low standards that built the life they're trying to escape. They want change without the challenge. They want transformation without tearing down the old foundation. But life doesn't work like that. You don't rise by wishing. You rise by demanding more from yourself. And that starts with your standards. Your standards are not your goals. Goals are what you want. Standards are what you will no longer tolerate. Goals live in your head. Standards live in your behavior. Goals are your preferences. Standards are your identity. And the truth is, you don't get what you want in life. You get what your standards demand. You can want to be fit, but if your standard is, I skip workouts when I'm tired, your body will reflect that. You can want to be wealthy, but if your standard is, I spend more than I earn, your bank account will follow. You can want love and connection, but if your standard is, I settle for whoever shows up, then you'll live in emotional poverty. It's not that the dream is wrong, it's that the standard is weak. Your life is a direct reflection of the standards you've been willing to accept, not just in the big obvious areas, but in the subtle, quiet decisions you make every day. How you show up when no one's watching, what you tolerate in your language, your environment, your self-talk, your habits. These aren't minor details. They are the bricks that build the house you live in emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually. And here's the most painful truth of all. Most people don't even set their own standards. They inherit them from their parents, their culture, their past experiences. They've been conditioned to believe this is just how life is. And so they operate inside a box that was never designed by their highest self. It was built by fear, by survival, by other PO,